Hey guys, tonight we begin with a journey into the crowded, noisy and aggressively smelly heart of a medieval city. We often romanticize these places, picturing cobblestone streets, charming market stalls and knights riding through with banners waving in the wind. But the reality was a sensory assault course designed to test the limits of human endurance. You wouldn't just be visiting a city, you would be surviving it. From the moment you opened your eyes to the moment you tried to close them again amidst the noise of 1,000 other souls, the medieval city was a machine of chaos. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world, drifting off together into the safety of the past. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan, for that soft background hum. Pull the blanket up a little higher, tuck it under your chin, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the year 1348. The good news? You're alive. The bad news? You're in the middle of a medieval city, and the city has decided it is time for you to wake up, whether you want to or not. You don't wake up to an alarm clock. You don't wake up to the gentle light of the sun filtering through sheer curtains. You wake up because the world around you is vibrating. The noise started hours ago, long before the sun even considered rising. It began with the bakers, who have been up since 3 a.m, slamming oven doors and shouting at apprentices. Then came the carters, driving wooden wheels over uneven cobblestones, a sound that is less like a vehicle passing and more like a continuous rhythmic earthquake, rattling the fillings in your teeth. You lie there for a moment, eyes closed, trying to pretend. You are anywhere else, but your body knows where you are. You can feel it. The mattress beneath you isn't memory foam. It isn't even a spring coil. It is a sack, a literal sack, stuffed with straw that hasn't been changed since the last harvest. It crunches every time you shift your weight. It smells faintly of dry grass and dust, and if you lie very still, you can hear the subtle, scratching movement of the tiny creatures sharing the straw with you. You are never truly alone in a medieval bed. The air in the room is cold, damp, heavy. It's the kind of cold that doesn't just sit on your skin, it seeps into the heavy wool blanket you've pulled up to your nose. You take a breath, and you can taste the room. It tastes of wood smoke, unwashed linen, and the lingering scent of too many people sleeping in a space designed for half as many. You open your eyes. The room is dim, lit only by the grey, watery light leaking through the shutters. There is no glass in the window. Glass is for cathedrals and kings, not for you. You have a wooden shutter, and right now it is rattling in its frame as the wind tries to force its way inside. You try to stretch, but you hit a wall, or an elbow. You aren't sleeping in a private bedroom. Privacy is a concept that won't be invented for another few centuries. You are sleeping in the main room of a tenement, or perhaps the loft above a workshop. You're sharing this bed with your spouse, maybe a child or two, and possibly an apprentice who curled up at the foot of the mattress because the floor was too cold. Everyone is a heat source. In the medieval city, body heat is the only central heating you're going to get. You sit up, shivering as the blanket falls away. Your nightshirt, a long, shapeless linen garment that has seen better days, and certainly whiter days, clings to your skin. It feels damp. Everything in the city feels slightly damp. Stone walls weep moisture. Timber frames soak up the rain. The air itself feels like it's holding onto a fog that never quite lifts. You swing your legs over the side of the bed and your feet hit the floor. If you are lucky, there are rushes, dried reeds scattered across the floorboards to provide insulation. If you are less lucky, the rushes haven't been changed in a while and they feel sticky, matted down with grease, spilled ale, and the mud tracked in from the street. You try not to think about what is living in the rushes. You just hunt for your shoes. Shoes are critical. You do not want to walk barefoot in a medieval city, not inside and definitely not outside. You find your leather turn shoes, soft-soled, simple boots that offer zero arch support and very little protection against sharp objects. You pull them on, tying the leather thongs tight around your ankles. Now comes the morning routine. You might think you'll head to the bathroom to wash up, but there is no bathroom, there is a bucket, a wooden pail sitting in the corner of the room, barely covered by a lid or a cloth. This is the chamber pot, and it is full. It has been used by everyone in the room throughout the long, dark night. The smell radiating from that corner is sharp, ammonia-heavy and impossible to ignore. It is the signature scent of the morning. Someone has to empty it. And today, that someone is you. You pick up the bucket, the handle digging into your palm, and walk toward the window. You unlatch the shutter, and the noise of the city hits you like a physical blow. Shouting, barking dogs, the clang of metal from a nearby smithy, the screech of seagulls if you're near a river. You look down into the street below. The street is a canyon of timber-framed houses leaning toward each other like gossiping giants. It is narrow, dark, and wet. People are already moving down there, weaving between carts and puddles. You wait for a gap in the crowd, or maybe you don't. In some cities, there are rules about when you can empty your bucket. In others, it's a free-for-all. You shout the warning, "Gardez-lou!" A corruption of the French "Garde-l'eau," watch out for the water. But let's be honest, you probably mutter it halfway through the toss. You heave the contents of the bucket out the window. It splashes onto the cobblestones below, joining the stream of filth that runs down the centre of the street. This is the open sewer system. It is gravity-fed, rain-cleared, and entirely overwhelmed. The smell wafting up from the street is staggering. It is a mix of human waste, rotting vegetable scraps, animal dung, and the acrid runoff from tanneries and butchers. It is a smell so thick you feel like you have to chew it before you can breathe. You pull the shutter closed, blocking out the worst of the stench, though it never really leaves. It's trapped in the wood of the walls, in the fabric of your clothes. You turn back to the room. It's time to get dressed. You don't have a wardrobe full of choices. You have the clothes you wore yesterday, and the day before that, and the day before that. Fashion in the medieval city isn't about expression. It's about durability. You pull on a pair of woolen hose, tight-fitting leggings that itch furiously. Then comes the tunic, rough wool dyed a dull brown or russet red. The fabric is heavy, scratchy, and stiff with dirt. Washing clothes is a massive, labour-intensive chore involving lye soap, rivers, and beating fabrics with paddles. It doesn't happen often, so you simply brush off the worst of the dried mud from the hem and pull it over your head. Over the tunic goes a belt cinched tight. You hang a small pouch from it. This is your pocket. Medieval clothes don't have pockets, so everything you own, a few coins, a small knife, maybe a lucky stone, goes into the pouch. If you lose the pouch, you lose your identity. Finally, you throw on a hood or a cap. Covering your head is non-negotiable. It keeps you warm, it keeps the ice contained, and it signals that you are a respectable person who understands social norms. You're dressed, you're awake, you're cold, and now you are hungry. But breakfast isn't a bowl of cereal or a plate of eggs. Cooking in a tenement room is dangerous. One spark from a hearth could set the whole timber frame building ablaze, and fire is the city's greatest fear. So, many people don't cook at home. You grab a hunk of bread left over from yesterday. It is dense, dark rye, with a crust so hard you have to gnaw at it. You might dip it in a cup of weak ale, because the water from the well might kill you, but the alcohol in the ale kills the bugs. You chew the bread slowly, feeling the grit of millstone sand grinding against your molars. This is why medieval skeletons have such worn-down teeth. You are literally eating rocks with your breakfast. You finish the bread, wipe the crumbs from your mouth, and prepare to leave the room. You have work to do. Everyone has work to do. If you don't work, you don't eat. There is no weekend. There is no retirement. There is only the city, waiting to extract every ounce of labour you have to give. You open the door to the stairwell. It is pitch black, even in the daytime. The stairs are steep, uneven, and slick with moisture. You feel your way down, hand against the rough plaster wall, listening to the sounds of the building waking up around you. A baby crying on the second floor, a couple arguing on the first, the sound of a dog scratching at a door. You reach the ground floor and step out into the street. The light is grey and filtered through the smoke of 1,000 morning fires. The noise is deafening. The smell is overpowering. The mud is waiting for your boots. Welcome to the morning rush hour, medieval style. You step into the flow of traffic, and immediately you're jostled. Personal space does not exist here. The street is barely 10 feet wide, and it is trying to accommodate pedestrians, handcarts, pack mules, wandering pigs, and a team of oxen dragging a sledge of timber. You are shoulder to shoulder with a monk in rough robes, a merchant in velvet who looks terrified of getting mud on his hem. and a beggar showing off a festering wound to elicit sympathy. You keep your hand on your pouch. Pickpockets are everywhere. They are the shadows in the crowd, the brush of a hand you barely feel until it's too late. You walk with your head down, watching your footing. The cobblestones are uneven, slick with the morning's waste. Puddles hide deep holes that could twist an ankle. Dead rats are kicked to the side of the road, flattened into the muck. But it's not just the ground you have to watch. You have to watch the sky, or rather the windows above you. You remember the bucket you emptied earlier? Everyone else is doing the same thing. Walking down a medieval street is a high-stakes game of dodgeball, where the ball is liquid and the penalty is humiliation. You listen for the creak of shutters opening above you, the shout of "Gardy-loo," and you learn to hug the walls or walk down the centre ridge of the road depending on the drainage. The sensory overload is immense. Vendors are screaming their wares. Hot pies, fresh herring, oysters! The blacksmith's hammer rings out like a bell, clang, clang, clang. The wheels of carts grind against stone, a bone-shaking rumble that vibrates through the soles of your shoes. The church bells begin to peal, calling the faithful to Mass, their deep bronze tones cutting through the cacophony, and the smells. We have to talk about the smells again because they are the defining character of the city. It isn't just a bad smell, it is a complex, layered landscape of odours. You smell roasting meat from the cookshop on the corner, savoury, fatty and tempting. But underneath it, you smell the metallic tang of blood from the butcher's gutter. You smell the acrid urine-soaked stench of the tanneries where leather is cured in vats of ammonia. You smell wet wool, unwashed bodies, wood smoke, and the rotting fish heads piled by the market stall. It is a thick physical presence that coats the back of your throat. You might wonder why anyone would choose to live here. Why leave the open fields and fresh air of the countryside for this claustrophobic, noisy, stinking hive? Because this is where the money is. This is where freedom is. In the countryside you are a serf, bound to the land, bound to a lord. In the city, city air makes you free. If a serf can live in a city for a year and a day without being caught, they are a free person. The city is dangerous, dirty and difficult, but it is also a place of opportunity. It is a place where a peasant can become a craftsman, where a merchant can become rich, where life moves faster than the seasons. You push your way through the crowd, heading toward the market square. The buildings loom over you, their upper stories jutting out further than the ground floors, creating a tunnel effect. These are jetties, designed to maximize floor space in a crowded city without paying for a larger footprint on the ground. They block out the sky, trapping the smoke and the noise below. It feels like twilight even at noon. You pass a tavern where the alewife is rolling out barrels. You pass a church where a priest is blessing a group of pilgrims. You pass a pillory where a man is locked in stocks, being pelted with rotten vegetables by a group of laughing children. Justice here is public, brutal, and considered entertainment. This is your world now. There is no escaping it. You have to navigate the mud, the crowds, the noise and the smells just to survive the day, and the day has barely begun. You reach the market square and the chaos intensifies. This is the heart of the city, the engine that keeps it running. Stalls are packed so tightly together that you have to turn sideways to squeeze through. Everything is for sale here. There are mounds of turnips and cabbages still covered in soil. There are baskets of eggs, live chickens tied by their feet, squawking and fluttering. There are bolts of cloth, rough wool, fine linen, imported silk that costs more than your life is worth. There are iron pots, leather belts, beeswax candles, and dried herbs hanging in bundles that smell of sage and thyme, briefly cutting through the stench of the street. The noise is a wall of sound. Everyone is haggling. In the medieval city there is no fixed price. Everything is a negotiation, a battle of wills. "Too much," a woman shouts, waving a plucked goose in a butcher's face. "It's a fine bird, raised on good grain," the butcher roars back, wielding a cleaver with alarming casualness. "It's scrawny and old," she counters. This argument will go on for 5 minutes over a difference of a single copper coin. You watch them, fascinated and exhausted. This is how commerce works. It is intimate, aggressive and loud. You are hungry again. That crust of bread didn't last long. You eye a stall selling hot pies. The vendor is a large man with flour in his beard and grease stains on his apron. "Hot pies! Meat pies!" he bellows. They smell incredible. Rich, savoury pastry, hot gravy. But you hesitate. Medieval city dwellers have a cynical relationship with meat pies. There is a joke, or perhaps a warning, that when the stray cat population goes down, the pie supply goes up. You look at the pies, you look at the vendor, you look at the lack of cats in the immediate vicinity. You decide to buy a roasted apple instead. It's safer. As you bite into the apple, hot and sweet, you lean against a stone pillar to watch the crowd. You see a group of city guards marching through, their chainmail jingling, pushing people aside with the shafts of their spears. They aren't here to help you. They are here to protect the merchant's gold and keep the peace. Usually by breaking a few heads if necessary, you make yourself small. In a medieval city, avoiding the attention of authority is a survival skill. Suddenly a bell rings out, sharp, frantic. Not the church bell. This is different. People stop moving. Heads turn. Smoke is rising from a roof 3 streets over. Fire. The word ripples through the crowd like a shockwave. Fire is the ultimate predator of the medieval city. The houses are wood. The roofs are thatch. The streets are narrow wind tunnels. A fire can consume a neighbourhood in an hour. There is no fire department. There is only the bucket brigade. You see men running toward the smoke, grabbing leather buckets from hooks on the walls. Fire! Fire! The cry goes up. Panic edges into the market. People start grabbing their goods, ready to run. You feel the adrenaline spike. This is the danger of living in a tinderbox. One overturned candle, one spark from a forge, and everything you know could be ash by sunset. But today, the wind is calm. The bucket brigade. It reaches the house. You watch from a distance as water is passed hand to hand, thrown onto the flames. The smoke turns from black to white. The fire is contained. The market exhales. The shouting resumes. The haggling starts up again. The crisis is over for now. You finish your apple, toss the core into the mud for a pig to find, and push off the pillar. You have survived the morning. But the afternoon brings its own challenges. The city is a machine that never stops grinding, and you are just one small cog trying not to get crushed. You trudge deeper into the labyrinth of streets, your boots heavy with the muck of the market. You are alive. You are fed. But the day is long, and the city has many more ways to test you. You leave the smoke of the extinguished fire behind you, but the scent of charred wood lingers in your nostrils, mixing with the damp earth and the ever-present sewage. The adrenaline fades, replaced by the low-grade persistent fatigue that defines your existence here. Survival in a medieval city isn't about grand battles, it's about endurance. It's about navigating 1,000 small inconveniences that add up to a life of perpetual friction. You turn down a lane known as the Shambles. Even if you couldn't read the street sign, which you can't because literacy is a luxury for monks and scribes, you would know where you are by the smell alone. This is where the butchers work, and work is a polite term for the carnage happening here. The street is slick, not with rain, but with blood and offal. Butchers slaughter animals right here in the open, hanging carcasses on hooks outside their shops to bleed out into the gutter. You step carefully, trying not to look too closely at the pile of entrails being swept aside by a boy with a broom made of twigs. Flies are everywhere. They buzz in thick, dark clouds, landing on the meat, the walls, and your face. You wave them away, but they return instantly. They own this street. To your left, a butcher is hacking at a pig with a heavy cleaver. He pauses to wipe sweat from his forehead with a bloody hand, leaving a red streak across his brow. He looks exhausted. He shouts a price at a passing woman, his voice hoarse from shouting over the noise of the city. She inspects a cut of meat, poking it with a finger that has definitely touched the street mud recently. Hygiene is a theoretical concept here. You buy meat, you cook it until it's leather, and you pray. That is the food safety protocol. You hurry past, your stomach churning slightly. You've reached the industrial quarter, if you can call it that. It's a warren of workshops where craftsmen turn raw materials into goods. The noise changes here. It's rhythmic, repetitive, industrious. You hear the tap-tap-tap of a cobbler hammering nails into leather soles. You hear the shh of a carpenter planing wood. You hear the bubbling of dye vats where cloth is being transformed from sheep grey to vibrant red or deep blue. Dyeing is nasty work. To set the dye, they use mordants like alum, or more commonly stale urine. Barrels of it sit outside the dyers' shops, collected from households for a few copper coins. The smell is ammonia sharp, stinging your eyes. This is the glamour of medieval fashion. Beautiful colours born from buckets of pea. You weave through the narrow alleys, dodging apprentices running errands. They are young, barely teenagers, carrying heavy loads of wood, water or tools. Their faces are smudged with soot, their hands calloused. Childhood here ends the moment you're strong enough to carry something. You see a boy of maybe 10 hauling a sack of charcoal twice his size, his breath coming in short, sharp gasps. He doesn't stop. He can't stop. The master is waiting. You emerge near the river. The air is slightly fresher here, carrying the scent of moving water and wet stone. But the river isn't just scenery. It is the city's highway, its water source, and its toilet. Barges float heavily downstream, piled high with grain, timber and stone. Ferrymen shout at each other, navigating the currents with long poles. Women are kneeling on the banks, washing clothes in water that is brown and frothy. Just upstream, a tanner is dumping waste from his vats into the same current. You watch a woman scrub a linen shirt, wringing it out with red chapped hands. She slaps the wet fabric against a rock, a rhythmic thud that echoes across the water. It's hard work. Everything is hard work. Cleaning clothes takes all day. Cooking takes all day. Gathering water takes all day. There are no shortcuts. Every comfort you have, a clean shirt, a warm meal, a drink of water, is paid for in hours of manual labour. You lean against a wooden railing watching the water flow. It's mesmerising, the way the city dumps its refuse into the river, and the river carries it away, endless and indifferent. But you can't linger. Loitering is suspicious. In a medieval city, if you aren't working, buying or praying, you're up to no good. Vagrancy laws are strict. If a guard decides you look idle, you could end up in the stocks or expelled from the city gates. You push off the railing and head back into the maze. The sun is high now, casting deep, sharp shadows between the buildings. The heat is rising, baking the mud and the filth into a crust. The smells intensify with the temperature. You pull your hood up a little, creating a small buffer of fabric between you and the world. You turn a corner and find yourself in a quieter street. The houses here are taller, built of stone rather than timber. The windows have glass, small diamond-shaped panes that glint in the sunlight. This is where the merchants live. The air smells different here, less dung, more beeswax and roasted meat. You see a servant sweeping the steps of a grand house, her broom moving with precise practice strokes. A heavy oak door opens, and a man in a velvet doublet steps out. He wears a gold chain around his neck and shoes with long pointed toes, poulaines, that are purely decorative and utterly impractical for walking in mud. He steps gingerly, avoiding the gutter, looking at the street with disdain. You press yourself against the wall to let him pass. Hierarchy is physical here. He takes the centre of the road, the cleanest part. You take the edge, the muck. You lower your eyes. You don't make eye contact with your betters unless invited. It's safer that way. He passes, leaving a trail of expensive perfume, musk and rosewater, that briefly masks the city's stench. You watch him go, feeling the vast, unbridgeable chasm between his life and yours. He worries about trade routes and guild politics. You worry about whether the bread will have mould on it tomorrow. But you don't have time for envy. You have errands. You need to visit the apothecary. You have a toothache, a dull throbbing, pain in your lower jaw that has kept you awake for 3 nights. In the medieval city, a toothache is a terrifying thing. It could be nothing. It could be an abscess that swells until it closes your throat. You find the apothecary's shop by the sign hanging above the door, a wooden pestle and mortar painted green. Inside it is dark and cool, smelling of dried herbs, camphor, and something metallic. Shelves are lined with ceramic jars labelled in Latin. The apothecary is a thin man with stained fingers and spectacles perched on his nose. He looks at you over the counter. "Toothache," you say, pointing to your jaw. He nods sagely. "I have cloves," he says, "to numb the pain, or henbane seeds, to smoke out the toothworm." The toothworm, that's the prevailing theory. A tiny worm is living inside your tooth, eating the root. You have to smoke it out. It sounds ridiculous to your modern mind, but here it is science. "Cloves," you say. You trust the spice, more than the smoke. He wraps a few dried cloves in a scrap of paper. "Chew them gently. If the pain persists, go to the barber surgeon. He can pull it." You shudder. The barber surgeon. The man who cuts hair, shaves beards, and yanks teeth with iron pliers, usually without anything stronger than a shot of brandy for the pain. You pay the apothecary 2 copper coins, a significant chunk of your daily earnings, and leave, clutching the cloves like precious gems. You chew one immediately. The sharp, numbing heat of the clove oil spreads through your mouth. The pain recedes just a little. It's a small victory. In a medieval city, you take your victories where you can find them. You continue your walk. You pass a churchyard. It is crowded, not just with graves, but with life. People are selling goods against the church walls. Children are playing tag among the headstones. A group of men is gambling with dice on a flat grave marker. The dead and the living share space. Here, death isn't hidden away in a sanitized park. It is right in the center of town. You see a fresh grave being dug, the earth piled high. The gravedigger pauses to wipe his brow, leaning on his shovel. He nods at you. You nod back. Memento mori. Remember you will die. The city never lets you forget. Suddenly a commotion erupts ahead. Shouting, the sound of running feet. You flatten yourself against a shop front. A thief? A brawl? No. It's a procession. A bell rings. Clear, high, insistent. A priest walks down the centre of the street carrying a golden cross. Behind him, boys swing censers releasing clouds of frankincense, and behind them, a group of monks carries a bier draped in black cloth. A funeral, but a wealthy one. The crowd parts instantly. Men take off their hats. Women cross themselves. The noise of the street dies down to a hush. Even the blacksmith stops hammering. For a moment the city stops its grinding motion to acknowledge the passage of a soul. You watch the procession pass, the smell of incense mixing with the street odours, creating a strange, holy funk. As the mourners pass, you see their faces, sombre, tear-stained, but also stoic. Death is familiar to them. It visits every house. It takes the old, the young, the strong, the weak. It is the only true equality in the city. The procession fades around a corner. The bell stops ringing, and instantly the noise returns. The blacksmith strikes his anvil, the vendors shout, the carts rumble. The city has no time to mourn for long. Life must continue. You push off the wall and head toward the town gates. You need to get out for a moment just to breathe air that isn't trapped between stone walls. The gates are massive, stone arches flanked by towers. Guards lean on their pikes, watching the flow of people. They charge a toll for wagons entering the city, checking goods for contraband or tax evasion. You slip through the pedestrian arch free of charge. Outside the walls, the world opens up. The suburbs are here, shanty towns of wooden huts clinging to the city walls like barnacles. These are the homes of the poorest, the outcasts, the recent arrivals who haven't found a place inside yet. Beyond them lie the fields, green, open, stretched out under the sky. You take a deep breath. The air smells of grass and manure. Cleaner manure, somehow, than the city variety. You walk a little way down the road, watching the farmers work. They are bent over, hoeing rows of vegetables that will feed the city tomorrow. They look at you with suspicion. You're a city dweller. You represent the mouth that eats their labour. There is a tension between the town and the country, a mutual dependence laced with resentment. But you don't care about politics right now. You just want a moment of quiet. You find a tree by the roadside and sit down. The bark is rough against your back. You close your eyes. For the first time all day, the roar of the city is a distant hum, like a hive of bees. You can hear the wind in the leaves, a bird singing. It feels like a different world. You check the position of the sun. It's afternoon. You can't stay here long. The gates close at sundown. If you're stuck outside, you're at the mercy of bandits, wolves, and the dark. You have to go back. Back to the noise, the smell, the crush of humanity. You stand up, brushing grass from your tunic. You chew another clove for your tooth. You look at the city walls rising high and impregnable against the sky. Inside those walls is safety. Inside those walls is food. Inside those walls is your life. You start walking back toward the gate. You join the stream of people heading in. Merchants with empty carts. Labourers returning from the fields. Travellers looking for an inn. You pass under the stone arch, into the shadow of the wall. The noise hits you again. The smell wraps around you. The city swallows you whole. You are back in the belly of the beast. And the afternoon is just beginning?
The afternoon in a medieval city is not a time for rest. It is a time when the energy shifts from the frantic bustle of morning commerce to something heavier, sweatier, and more desperate. The sun has heated the stone walls, turning the narrow streets into ovens. The mud underfoot has dried into a crusty, uneven surface that cracks beneath your boots, releasing trapped pockets of stench. You navigate the maze of streets heading toward the Guildhall. You don't have business there, you are not a master craftsman, but the square outside is a good place to disappear into a crowd if you need to rest your legs without attracting the attention of the watch. The Guildhall is imposing. A timber-framed giant with intricate carvings of saints and tools on its beams. It represents the true power of the city. The king may rule the land, but the guilds rule the economy. They decide who can work, what they can charge, and how good the product must be. If you try to sell a shoe in this city without the permission of the Cordwainers Guild, you will find yourself swiftly fined, beaten, or both. It is a closed shop in the most literal sense. You lean against a water trough, watching the scene. A group of apprentices is being scolded by a master carpenter. They stand in a line, heads bowed, looking at their feet. The master is red-faced, shouting about a wasted piece of oak. "Wood does not grow on trees," he yells, which is technically incorrect. But you understand his point. Resources are precious. Waste is a sin. You see a woman selling hot peas pottage, from a cauldron on a small cart. It's a staple food, dried peas boiled with water, onions, and maybe a bacon bone if the cook was feeling generous. It's thick, grey, and filling. You have a coin left in your pouch. You decide to spend it. She ladles the pottage into a wooden bowl you carry on your belt. Most people carry their own spoon and bowl. Disposable packaging is centuries away. The bowl is warm in your hands. You find a spot on a bench and eat. It tastes of salt and smoke. It's not gourmet, but it stops the gnawing in your stomach. While you eat, you listen. The city is a hive of gossip. Two women washing wool nearby are talking in hushed tones. "Did you hear about the baker on Miller's Lane? The one with the lazy eye?" "Yes," caught putting chalk in his flour again. "To make the bread whiter, they'll put him in the pillory, with the loaf tied around his neck. Serves him right." You nod to yourself. Food adulteration is a constant battle. Bakers add chalk or sawdust to stretch flour. Brewers water down ale. Butchers sell meat that is historically significant. The city employs testers, ale conners and bread weighers, to check quality, but they can't catch everyone. Eating is always a trust exercise. You finish your pottage and wipe the bowl with a crust of bread you saved. You stand up, your legs stiff. You need to keep moving. Idleness is dangerous. You wander toward the river again, but this time to the wharves. This is the global interface of the city. Ships are docked, their masts like a stripped forest bobbing against the sky. They fly flags from places you have only heard of in stories. Venice, Flanders, the Hanseatic League. Sailors are unloading crates. You smell spices, cinnamon, cloves, pepper. These scents are so expensive they might as well be gold dust floating in the air. A single bag of pepper is worth more than the tenement you sleep in. You watch a merchant arguing with a captain over a manifest. The merchant is dressed in fur-trimmed robes, sweating profusely. The captain looks like he has been carved out of driftwood. "The damp has ruined the silk," the merchant wails. "The sea is wet," the captain replies, unimpressed. You walk past barrels of wine from Gascony, bales of wool bound for Italy, crates of dried fish from the North Sea. The city is a stomach, consuming resources from across the known world. It is also a machine, processing raw materials into wealth. You see a scribe sitting on a crate, tallying goods on a wax tablet. His stylus moves quickly, scratching symbols into the wax. He is the computer of the operation, tracking the flow of capital. Suddenly a rat scuttles across your path, fat and bold. It stops, looks at you with beady, intelligent eyes, and then vanishes behind a barrel. You flinch. Rats are everywhere. They are the unofficial citizens of the city. They eat the grain, they chew through wood, and they carry the fleas that carry the plague. You don't know about the plague vector yet. No one does. But you know rats are bad news. You leave the docks and head back into the city centre. The shadows are lengthening. The afternoon is bleeding into evening. The character of the city begins to change. The frantic energy of commerce softens into something more social, but also more dangerous. Taverns are filling up. You hear laughter and singing spilling out of open doors. Alehouses are identified by an ale stake, a long pole with a bush of leaves tied to the end sticking out horizontally from the building. It signals that the brew is ready. Inside, it is dark, smoky, and crowded. Men and women sit on benches, drinking from leather tankards or earthenware mugs. They play dice. They gamble on everything. The roll of a bone. The weather. Which dog will win a fight. Gambling is a vice the church condemns and everyone practices. You don't go in. You don't have the money for ale tonight. You keep walking. You pass a bathhouse. These are controversial places. On one hand, they are places to get clean hot water, steam, soap. On the other hand, the church calls them stews and views them as dens of iniquity. Many bathhouses offer more than just a scrub. They are the centres of the city's sex trade, discreetly tolerating what cannot be officially sanctioned. You see a man slipping into the door, pulling his hood down low. He doesn't want to be recognised. In a city where everyone knows everyone, anonymity is the ultimate luxury. The sun dips below the city walls. The sky turns a bruised purple. The curfew bell will ring soon. Curfew, couvre-feu, cover the fire. It is the signal to dampen your hearths and get off the streets. The city at night is not a place for honest people. There are no streetlights. The only illumination comes from the moon or the lantern you carry yourself. If you are found walking without a light after curfew, the watch will arrest you. Darkness implies intent. You hurry toward your tenement. The streets are emptying out. The noise is changing. Less shouting. More whispering. You hear the slam of shutters being barred. The city is locking itself down against the night. You reach your building. The stairwell is even darker now. You feel your way up, counting the steps. You open the door to your room. It is warm, smelling of the people already gathered there. Your family is back. Your spouse is mending a tunic by the light of a tallow candle. The candle smells of burning animal fat, a greasy, heavy scent, but it gives light. "You're late," your spouse says, not looking up. "The streets were crowded," you say. You sit on the edge of the bed, pulling off your boots. Your feet throb. The relief of being off them is intense. Dinner is simple. Bread again. Maybe a piece of hard cheese. You eat quietly, listening to the sounds of the city settling down. The church bells ring the curfew. Dong, dong, dong. It is a sound of finality. The day is done. You blow out the candle. Wax is expensive. You don't burn it for fun. The room plunges into darkness. You crawl under the blanket. finding your space among the other bodies. The straw mattress crunches. The heat of the room rises. You lie there, eyes open in the dark. You can hear the city breathing, the wind rattling the shutters, a dog barking in the distance, the shout of the night watchman. 9 o'clock and all's well. Is it? You survived. You didn't starve. You didn't get arrested. You didn't catch the plague today in the medieval city. That counts as a win. But as you drift towards sleep, your mind wanders to the realities you faced today. The sensory assault, the crushing lack of privacy, the constant low-level danger. You realize that the romance of the past is a lie invented by people with central heating and flush toilets. And yet, there is a resilience here, a stubborn, gritty refusal to give up. The city is a beast, but it is also a hive of human ingenuity. People are building cathedrals out of stone and faith. They are weaving tapestries that tell stories of heroes. They are writing laws, forging tools, and singing songs in the face of the dark. You close your eyes. The smell of the chamber pot in the corner is still there, but you are used to it. The scratch of the wool blanket is familiar. The sound of someone snoring beside you is rhythmic, almost comforting. You drift off, knowing that in a few hours the bakers will wake up, the ovens will fire, and the whole chaotic, smelly, loud, magnificent machine will start all over again. Congratulations, you survived a day in a medieval city. Now, sleep. You're going to need it. So, you've survived the medieval city. You've navigated the mud, dodged the buckets, and eaten bread that doubles as construction material. But let's say you're tired of the urban grind. You want fresh air. You want the romance of the open road. You want to see the world. Congratulations. You are now a medieval traveller. And you are about to discover that travel is just a fancy word for suffering in motion. In the modern world, travel means booking a ticket, complaining about legroom, and arriving on a different continent 6 hours later. In the Middle Ages, travel means walking until your feet bleed, sleeping in ditches, and hoping the guy you met at the crossroads isn't measuring you for a shallow grave. The first thing you notice about medieval travel is the speed, or rather, the lack of it. If you are walking, unless you own a horse, you are walking. You are moving at about 3 miles per hour. A day's journey is maybe 20 miles if the weather holds and you don't get lost. To get from London to York is not a morning commute. It is a 2-week expedition requiring supplies, planning, and a last will and testament. The roads themselves are a disaster. The Romans built beautiful, straight, paved roads 1,000 years ago. But the Romans are gone, and their roads have been pillaged for stone or swallowed by the mud. What's left are dirt tracks. In summer, they are baked hard and choked with dust that coats your throat like plaster. In winter, they are quagmires of sticky clay that can suck a boot right off your foot. There are stories of travellers drowning in potholes. They might be exaggerations, but looking at the road ahead, you decide not to test the theory. You are walking through a forest now. It should be beautiful. Ancient oaks, dappled sunlight, bird song. But in the medieval mind, the forest is not a place of leisure. It is a place of danger. The woods are where civilization ends. Outlaws live here. Wolves live here. And according to local superstition, things much worse than wolves live here. You walk quickly, your hand on your belt knife, jumping at the snap of every twig. You meet other travellers. This is the social network of the road. You pass a group of pilgrims, identifiable by their staffs and badges. They are heading to a shrine to pray for a cure or forgiveness. or just because they wanted to see something other than their own village. Pilgrimage is the medieval equivalent of tourism, but with more blisters and praying. They are singing a hymn, their voices thin and reedy in the open air. You nod to them. Safety in numbers. You also pass a messenger, riding hard on a sweating horse. He wears the livery of a lord and looks like he hasn't slept in days. He doesn't stop. He thunders past, spraying you with mud. Information travels at the speed of a horse here. If a king dies, the news might reach the border of his kingdom weeks later. You are living in a world of delayed reaction. As the sun sets, the real problem arises: where to sleep. There are no roadside motels with neon signs. If you are near a town, you might find an inn, but medieval inns are not hotels. They are large houses where you pay to sleep in a common room, possibly on a bench, possibly on the floor, surrounded by strangers who snore, smell, and steal. You sleep with your money pouch tied around your neck and your knife in your hand. If you are not near a town, you sleep outside. You find a dry spot under a hedge, wrap yourself in your cloak, and hope it doesn't rain. The darkness is absolute. There is no light pollution. The stars are incredibly bright, cold, and distant. You feel very small. The silence of the countryside is heavy, broken only by the hoot of an owl or the rustle of something moving in the brush. You try to convince yourself it's a rabbit. It's probably a rabbit. But travel isn't just about the physical journey. It's about the legal one. You can't just walk anywhere. Borders are real, and they are everywhere. Every town has a toll gate. Every bridge has a toll keeper. You have to pay to cross, pay to enter, pay to exist in a space that isn't yours. If you are a serf, you need permission from your lord to leave the manor. If you are caught travelling without a badge or a letter, you are a vagrant. Vagrancy is a crime. You can be whipped, branded, or put in the stocks just for being a stranger in the wrong place. And yet, despite the mud, the danger, and the tolls, people travel. Merchants lead pack horses loaded with wool and wine. Masons walk from cathedral site to cathedral site looking for work. Minstrels carry lutes and news from court to court. The road is the artery of the medieval world. It is where ideas spread. It is where news is shared. It is where the isolated bubbles of village life touch and merge. You keep walking. Your feet hurt. Your back aches. You are thirsty. And the stream water looks questionable. But there is a rhythm to it. Step, step, step. The landscape unfolds slowly, revealing itself at the pace of a human stride. You see things you would miss if you were speeding by in a car. A hawk diving for a mouse, a peculiar knot in an old tree. The way the light hits a distant hill, you realize that travel changes you. It strips away the comforts of home and forces you to rely on yourself. You become sharper, harder, more observant. You learn to read the sky for weather, read faces for intent, read the land for the safest path. Eventually you see it. A spire rising above the trees, a town, civilization, the promise of a roof, a fire, and maybe a cup of ale that isn't entirely watered down. You pick up your pace. The pain in your legs fades slightly. You have made it. You have survived the road. But as you approach the gates, you see the toll collector waiting, his hand already outstretched. You sigh, reach for your pouch, and prepare to pay the price of entry. Because in the medieval world, nothing is free, especially not the right to stop walking. Let's shift gears. You've survived the city, you've survived the road. Now, let's talk about something more intimate. Let's talk about medieval privacy, or, more accurately, the complete and total lack of it. In the modern world, privacy is a right. You have a bedroom, you have a bathroom with a lock, you have a phone with a passcode. You can retreat. In the Middle Ages, privacy is not a right, it is a fantasy. It is a luxury so rare that even kings barely have it. Imagine your house. Not a castle, just a regular medieval home. It is likely 1 or 2 rooms. The main room is the hall, which sounds grand, but really just means the place where everything happens. You cook here, you eat here, you work here. And yes, you sleep here, but you don't sleep alone. Beds are expensive, furniture is expensive, so the bed is communal. You share it with your spouse, your children, and maybe an aunt who has nowhere else to go. It's a pile of bodies seeking warmth and comfort. If you want to have a private conversation, you whisper. If you want to have a private argument, you go outside and hope the neighbours aren't listening. They are. If you want to do anything else, you learn to be very, very quiet. And it's not just your family. Servants, if you have them, sleep in the same room, maybe on a trundle bed or just on the floor. Apprentices sleep in the shop, which is attached to the house. There are eyes and ears everywhere. The concept of personal space is non-existent. You are always being observed. Now, let's talk about the castle. Surely the king has privacy? No. In fact, the king has less privacy than you. The king's life is a public performance. He wakes up surrounded by courtiers. They help him dress. They watch him eat. They stand around his bed while he sleeps to guard him. Even his bodily functions are attended. The groom of the stool is a high-ranking courtier whose job is to assist the king in the bathroom. This is considered a position of honour because it gives you intimate access to the monarch. Privacy is traded for power. Walls are thin. In timber-framed houses you can hear your neighbour snoring, arguing or counting coins. In castles, stone walls echo. Tapestries aren't just for decoration. They are sound dampeners, trying to muffle the constant noise of 100 people living in a stone box. This lack of privacy changes how people behave. Since everyone is watching, reputation is everything. You can't hide your mistakes. If you treat your wife badly, the neighbours know. If you cheat on a business deal, the town knows. Social pressure is the primary law enforcement. Shame is a powerful tool, but there is a flip side. Loneliness is rare. You are never truly alone. You are part of a tight-knit web of humanity. If you get sick, someone is there. If you fall on hard times, the community knows. It's suffocating, yes, but it's also supportive. The modern epidemic of isolation would be baffled by the medieval mind. You live alone? They would ask. Are you an outcast? Are you cursed? The only people who seek solitude are hermits and anchorites, religious recluses who wall themselves up in cells attached to churches to pray. And even they have a window so people can talk to them and give them food. Solitude is seen as a spiritual extreme, a form of living death. So you learn to build walls inside your head. You learn to daydream while weaving, to pray while walking in a crowd. You create an inner sanctuary because the outer world offers none. Now imagine the night. The shutters are closed, the fire is dying down, the room is dark, but it's full of breathing sounds. The rhythmic inhale and exhale of your family, the rustle of straw, the shifting of bodies. You are part of a pack. It's warm. It's safe. It's deeply, instinctively human. But then someone snores loudly, right in your ear. And you realize that while community is great, a separate bedroom would be a miracle. You roll over, pulling the scratchy blanket up. You stare into the darkness. You think about the secrets you keep, the thoughts you don't speak. Those are yours. The only true privacy you have is inside your own skull. And in a world that demands everything from you, that small, silent space is the most precious territory of all. Let's talk about food. Not the grand feasts you see in movies, roast swans, endless wine, and platters of exotic fruit. That's for the top 1%. You are not the 1%. You are the medieval average, and your diet is best described as brown, boiled, and bread-based. Bread is the foundation of your existence. It isn't just a side dish, it is the main event. Depending on your status, your bread varies. If you're wealthy, you eat white bread made from refined wheat flour. It's light, airy, and considered pure. If you're poor, which you likely are, you eat maslin bread, a mix of wheat and rye, or horse bread made from beans, peas, and oats. It is dense, heavy, and incredibly filing. It's the kind of bread that sits in your stomach like a cobblestone for 6 hours. You also use bread as a plate. Trenchers, large, stale slices of bread, serve as edible dishware. You pile your stew or meat onto the trencher. The juices soak into the bread. At the end of the meal, you eat the plate. Or, if you are feeling charitable or full, you give the gravy-soaked trencher to the poor or the dogs. It is the ultimate biodegradable packaging. Then there is pottage. You eat pottage every day. It is a stew made of whatever you have. Vegetables, grains, herbs. If you're lucky, a bit of bacon or mutton. It simmers in a cauldron over the fire all day, every day. You don't empty the pot. You just add new ingredients to yesterday's leftovers. This means the pottage is in a state of perpetual evolution. Some parts of it might be fresh, some parts might be archaeological artifacts. It's warm, it's nutritious, and it tastes beige. Meat is a luxury. You might have pork because pigs are easy to keep. They eat garbage and turn it into bacon. You might have chicken or eggs. Beef is rare. Cows are for milk and ploughing, not eating, until they are too old to work. Sheep are for wool. If you eat a sheep, it's probably mutton, tough, stringy, and requiring hours of boiling to be edible. But let's talk about the real challenge: preservation. There are no refrigerators. If you kill a pig in November, you have to make it last until spring. How? Salt. Buckets of salt. You rub salt into the meat until it is stiff and dry. You smoke it in the chimney until it looks like tree bark. When you want to eat it, you have to soak it in water for days just to rehydrate it and leach out the salt. Even then it tastes like licking a salt lick. Fish is common, especially on Fridays and during Lent when the church forbids meat. But unless you live by the sea, the fish is salted, dried or pickled. Stockfish, dried cod, is as hard as wood. You have to beat it with a hammer before you can cook it. It smells pungent, fishy and ancient. And vegetables? They are viewed with suspicion by the upper classes. Doctors claim raw vegetables cause wind and melancholy. They believe fruits and vegetables should be cooked to death to be safe. So you boil your cabbage, you boil your onions, you boil your carrots until they are soft mush. The concept of a crisp salad is horrifying to a medieval physician. Spices are the ultimate status symbol. If you are rich, you drown your food in pepper, cinnamon, cloves, saffron and nutmeg, not just for flavour, but to show off. Look at me, your food says. I can afford dust from the other side of the world. If you are poor, you use garden herbs, garlic, onions, mustard, sage. Ironically, your food probably tastes better because you aren't masking the flavour of rotting meat with a mountain of nutmeg. Water is a gamble. People know bad water makes you sick, even if they don't know why. So you drink ale. Ale is safer. It's brewed, so the water is boiled. It's not very alcoholic, small beer, is weak enough for children to drink with breakfast. It provides calories and hydration. You drink it from a leather tankard or a wooden cup. It's cloudy, warm and comforting. Milk is for cheese and butter, or for the very young and very old. Drinking a glass of fresh milk is considered weird and slightly risky. Cheese, however, is a staple. Hard cheese, soft cheese, green cheese, which just means new unaged cheese. It's portable protein. You don't have a fork. Forks are a suspicious Italian invention that hasn't caught on yet. You have a knife, which you carry on your belt at all times. You have a spoon for pottage. And you have your fingers. You eat with your hands, wiping them on the tablecloth or a piece of bread. Etiquette manuals exist telling you not to pick your teeth with your knife or spit on the table, which suggests that people were definitely picking their teeth with knives and spitting on tables. Dining is communal. You share a cup. You dip into the same dish. Germ theory is non-existent, so sharing saliva is just part of dinner. If someone has a cold, everyone gets a cold. But despite the monotony, food is celebrated. Feasts are explosions of gluttony. When there is a wedding or a saint's day, the village pools resources. There might be a roasted pig, pies, honey cakes, gallons of ale. People eat until they are sick because they know tomorrow it's back to pottage and hard bread. You sit at your table gnawing on a piece of salted pork. It's tough, but it's food. You wash it down with ale. The fire crackles. Your stomach feels full. In a world where hunger is a constant threat, being full is the greatest feeling there is. You wipe your grease-stained fingers on your tunic. You save the crust for breakfast. You survive. Let's step out of the kitchen and into the courtroom. Or, more likely, the village green or the church porch, because medieval justice is public, swift, and rarely involves a jury of your peers deliberating for weeks. Medieval law is a patchwork quilt of royal decrees, church laws, and local customs that vary from town to town. But one principle holds true. Justice is not about rehabilitation. It is about retribution and deterrence. If you commit a minor crime, say selling bad bread or gossiping too viciously, you don't go to prison. Prisons are expensive. Why should the town pay to feed you? Instead, they shame you. You are put in the stocks or the pillory. These are wooden frames that lock your wrists and neck, holding you in an uncomfortable, bent-over position in the middle of the market. This is interactive justice. The townspeople are invited to participate. They throw rotten vegetables, mud, and horse dung at you. They jeer. They mock. It hurts your dignity more than your body, but it's effective. You become a living example of what not to do. The message is clear. The community is watching, and the community disapproves. For sharper tongues, there is the scold's bridle, a metal cage for the head, with a spiked plate that goes into the mouth to hold the tongue down. It is humiliating and painful. Or the cucking stool, where you are tied to a chair and dunked into the river or a pond. It's cold, wet, and potentially dangerous if the water is deep or dirty. If you steal, things get serious. Theft is a direct attack on someone's survival. If you steal a small amount, you might get fined or whipped. If you steal something valuable, like a horse or a silver cup, you hang. Capital punishment is common because life is cheap and property is precious. Executions are public spectacles. Crowds gather, vendors sell pies. It is a grim form of theatre meant to terrify potential criminals into honesty. But medieval justice has a weird loophole. Benefit of clergy. If you are a member of the clergy, you can be tried in a church court which cannot impose the death penalty. They are much more lenient. But how do they prove you are clergy? They ask you to read a passage from the Bible, usually Psalm 51. Since most people can't read, literacy becomes a get-out-of-jail-free card. Criminals memorize the verse just in case. It's called the neck verse because it saves your neck from the noose. Then there is trial by ordeal. This is reserved for cases where there is no clear evidence. He said, she said situations. The logic is simple. God knows the truth, so let God decide. There is ordeal by fire. You hold a red-hot iron bar and walk 3 paces. Your hand is bandaged. 3 days later, the bandages are removed. If the wound is healing cleanly, God has protected you. Innocent, if it is infected, which, let's be honest, is highly likely given the burns and lack of hygiene, you are guilty. There is ordeal by water. You are tied up and thrown into holy water. If you sink, the water accepts you. You are innocent. They pull you out before you drown, hopefully. If you float, the water rejects you. You are guilty. It's a lose-lose situation that relies on divine intervention to make sense. Thankfully, by the later Middle Ages, trial by jury is replacing ordeals, but it's still rough. If you refuse to plead, because if you are convicted, the king seizes your property and leaves your family destitute, they press you. Heavy stones are placed on your chest until you either plead or are crushed to death. It's a test of endurance for the sake of inheritance. The catchpole, the medieval tax collector and sheriff, is the man you fear. He comes for your coins, your goods, and your freedom. He carries a staff and represents the king's reach into your pocket. Despite the brutality, there is a logic. The community polices itself. The hue and cry is a legal requirement. If you see a crime, you must shout. Everyone who hears the shout must drop what they are doing and chase the criminal. If you don't chase, you get fined. It turns law enforcement into a team sport. You watch a man being dragged to the pillory. He looks terrified. The crowd is already gathering, cabbage stalks in hand. You feel a mix of pity and relief. Pity for his suffering. Relief that it isn't you. You keep your head down. You pay your debts. You don't steal. Because in a world where justice involves hot irons and public drowning, being a boring, law-abiding citizen is the smartest survival strategy of all. Let's turn away from the harsh light of justice and look at something softer, yet infinitely more complicated, medieval fashion. You might think, I'll just wear whatever is comfortable. Wrong. In the Middle Ages, you wear what you are legally allowed to wear. Welcome to the world of sumptuary laws. These are laws designed specifically to police your wardrobe based on your income and social class. The nobility is terrified of social climbing. They don't want a rich merchant looking like a duke. They want to be able to look at you and know exactly how much you are worth and who you serve. If you are a peasant, you wear wool, linen or hemp. You wear russet, brown, grey or undyed cloth. If you try to wear purple silk, you are breaking the law. If you wear shoes with toes that are too pointy, you are breaking the law. If your tunic is too short, revealing too much leg, you are breaking the law and being scandalous. The rich, however, are walking art projects. They wear velvet satin damask and ermine fur. They wear colours that scream money, crimson dyed with Kermes beetles, deep blues from woad or imported indigo, bright yellows from saffron. But fashion isn't just about colour, it's about architecture. Let's talk about the cotehardie and the hauptland. These are garments with sleeves so long they touch the floor. They are utterly impractical. You cannot work in them, you cannot run in them. That is the point. They signal, I do not do manual labour. Women pluck their hairlines to create a high domed forehead which is considered beautiful. They wear headdresses that defy gravity. The hennin, a cone-shaped hat with a veil floating from the top, makes entering a doorway a geometric challenge. Men wear codpieces, padded pouches over the groin that start as modesty and evolve into aggressive fashion statements, decorated with ribbons and embroidery. It is subtle like a sledgehammer. Underneath all this finery, linen. A linen shift, or shirt, is the layer against your skin. It absorbs sweat and oil. You might not wash your outer velvet robe for years, but you, hopefully, wash your linen. It is the barrier between your body and your expensive clothes. And then there are the shoes. Poulens or krakows are shoes with ridiculously long pointed toes. They get so long that the tips have to be stuffed with moss to keep their shape, or tied back to the knee with chains so you don't trip. The church hates them. They call them Satan's claws because they make kneeling for prayer difficult. But fashion wins. Men wobble around like clumsy birds because it is trendy. Buttons are a revolution. Before buttons, clothes were tied or pinned. Now, you can have tight-fitting clothes. This changes silhouettes. Tunics become fitted, sleeves become tight. The body is revealed, not just draped. This causes moral panic, of course. Preachers rail against tight clothes showing off the shape of the flesh. But you, in your rough tunic, don't worry about buttons or pointed toes. You worry about warmth. You layer a linen shirt, a wool tunic, a hood, a cloak. Wool is magical. It keeps you warm even when wet. It breathes. It lasts forever. It smells like wet sheep when it rains, but you are used to that. You see a noble riding by. He is wearing a cloak lined with squirrel fur. His horse has better trappings than your house has furniture. He looks magnificent and ridiculous. You pull your hood tighter. Your clothes are dull, scratchy and patched, but they are yours. And unlike him, you can actually walk without tripping over your own feet. Let's leave the world of fashion and step into the quiet, candle-lit world of medieval time. You check your wrist. Oh wait, you don't have a watch. You don't have a phone. You don't even have a clock in your house. So, how do you know what time it is? You listen. The church bells are the heartbeat of the medieval day. They ring for matins, midnight, lauds, dawn, prime, 6 a.m, terce, 9 a.m, sext, noon, nones, 3 p.m, vespers, sunset, and compline, bedtime. These canonical hours divide the day into chunks of prayer and work. But here is the trick. The hours are not fixed. In the summer, when the sun is up for 16 hours, a daytime hour is long, maybe 80 minutes. In the winter, when the sun is up for 8 hours, a daytime hour is short, maybe 40 minutes. Medieval time stretches and shrinks with the seasons. It is organic, flexible, and entirely dependent on the sun. This makes meeting people complicated. Meet me at noon means meet me when the sun is highest, which is vague at best. Meet me at the third bell is better. Punctuality is not a virtue because precision is impossible. Mechanical clocks are starting to appear in town squares, marvellous machines of gears and weights, but they don't have minute hands. Why would you need a minute hand? Life doesn't move that fast. The clock strikes the hour, and that is enough. The year is also different. You don't just have months, you have seasons of labour. There is ploughing time, sowing time, harvest time, slaughter time. The calendar is a circle of tasks. It is also a circle of saints. You don't say, October 25th. You say St. Crispin's Day. You don't say June 24th. You say midsummer. The year is mapped out in feast days and fast days. Nighttime is a different country. When the sun goes down, the world changes. There is no ambient light. Darkness is absolute. It is the time of spirits, thieves, and wolves. If you go out, you carry a lantern or a torch. If you don't, you are invisible. This is why curfews exist, to keep people inside where it is safe. But the night isn't just for sleeping. People sleep in 2 shifts. First sleep lasts until around midnight. Then you wake up. For an hour or so, the house is awake. People talk, pray, tend the fire, or be affectionate. This is the watch. It is a quiet, intimate time before everyone goes back to sleep for second sleep until dawn. It is a natural rhythm lost to modern electric lights. You look at the sky. The sun is dipping low. The Vespers bell is ringing. The day is ending. You feel the rhythm in your bones. You don't need a clock to tell you you are tired. You don't need a calendar to tell you winter is coming. You can feel the bite in the wind. Time is not a number on a screen. It is the sun on your face, the ache in your muscles, the sound of a bell drifting across the rooftops. It owns you, but you understand it. It is the one thing in this chaotic world that makes sense. Let's leave the abstract concept of time and return to the very tangible reality of medieval health. Or, as you might call it, the waiting game. If you get sick in the Middle Ages, you have options. None of them are good, but you have. First you pray. This is the first line of defense. You pray to a specific saint. Got a toothache? Pray to Saint Apollonia, who had her teeth pulled out during martyrdom. Got the plague? Pray to Saint Roch, who survived it. Got a sore throat? Saint Blaise. There is a saint for every organ and ailment. You might go on a pilgrimage to a shrine, buy a pilgrim badge, and hope for a miracle. If prayer doesn't work, you go to the wise woman or the herbalist. She knows plants. She gives you willow bark for pain, aspirin, honey for wounds, antibacterial, and mint for digestion. Her remedies often work because they are based on centuries of observation, but she also might tell you to wear a bag of dried toad bones around your neck. You do it. Can't hurt, right? If you are rich, you call a physician. He is a university-educated man who has read Galen and Hippocrates. He will check your pulse and look at your urine. Urine analysis is huge. He holds a flask of your urine up to the light, checks the colour, the sediment, and yes, sometimes the taste. He will tell you your humours are unbalanced. You have too much blood, sanguine, phlegm, phlegmatic, yellow bile, choleric, or black bile, melancholic. His solution? Balance you out. Usually by removing fluids. He cuts a vein and lets a pint of blood drain into a bowl. You feel dizzy. He says that means it's working. Or he gives you an emetic to make you vomit. Or a purgative to make you empty your bowels. The goal is to get the bad stuff out. It's brutal, weakening, and expensive. Then there is the surgeon. He is not a doctor. He is a craftsman. He is often also the barber. He cuts hair, trims beards, and amputates limbs. If you have a shattered leg or a gangrenous toe, you go to him. He has knives, saws, and cauterizing irons. He has no anesthesia. He has alcohol and strong assistants to hold you down. Speed is his only mercy. He cuts fast, sears the wound with a hot iron to stop the bleeding, and bandages it up. If you don't die of shock or infection, you might live. Hospitals exist, but they are not for curing people. They are for caring for the soul. They are run by monks and nuns. They give you a bed, food, warmth, and prayer. They make you comfortable while you die. It is hospice care, not acute medicine. And then there is the plague, the Black Death. It is the monster in the room. When it arrives, the doctors are helpless. They wear beak masks filled with herbs to filter the miasma, bad air. They tell you to burn aromatic woods, to sit between two fires, to not think sad thoughts. None of it works. The plague kills indiscriminately. It empties villages. It silences cities. It changes everything. But you just have a cold. You drink hot ale with spices. You wrap yourself in wool. You sit by the fire. You wait. The body is resilient. It fights. And in a world without antibiotics, your own immune system is the greatest hero of the story. You cough. It rattles in your chest. But you are still breathing. You are still here. And tomorrow, if the fever breaks, you will go back to work. Let's take a walk to a place that sounds relaxing, but is actually a hub of intense negotiation and occasional nudity, the medieval bathhouse. In the modern imagination, medieval people never washed. We picture them caked in mud, smelling like wet dogs and terrified of water. This is false. Medieval people liked being clean. They just didn't have showers in their apartments. So, they go to the bathhouse. In a city like London or Paris, there are dozens of them. You recognize them by the steam rising from vents or the sign of a striped pole. You pay a fee, strip off your grimy wool tunic, and step into a large wooden tub filled with hot water. Hot water. It is a luxury beyond compare. Someone else chopped the wood. Someone else hauled the water. Someone else heated it. You just sit there and soak. The heat seeps into your muscles, loosening the knots from days of hard labour. You scrub yourself with soap made from animal fat and wood ash. It's harsh, but it works. But the bathhouse isn't just for washing. It's a social club. People sit in tubs next to each other and talk. Deals are made here. Gossip is exchanged. Did you hear about the miller? I heard the Duke is raising taxes. Nakedness removes social barriers. Without your velvet or your rags, you are just pink, steaming humans. Of course, the bathhouse has a reputation. It is often called a stew. Why? Because it's hot, steamy, and morally ambiguous. Prostitutes work here. Not all bathhouses are brothels, but many brothels are bathhouses. The church frowns on them. They worry that communal bathing leads to communal sin. They also worry, correctly, that bathhouses spread disease. Syphilis will eventually close many of them down, but for now, they are thriving. There is also the barber surgeon lurking in the corner. While you soak, you can get a shave, a haircut, or have a tooth pulled. Multitasking at its finest. Or get cupped heated glass cups placed on your back to draw out bad humours. You leave the bathhouse clean, shaved, and covered in round purple bruises. For the wealthy, bathing is a private affair. A wooden tub lined with linen sheets is brought into the bedroom. Servants fill it with buckets of hot water scented with rose petals or herbs. It is elaborate and labour-intensive. For the poor, if you can't afford the bathhouse, you wash in a basin. You wash your face and hands every morning. You wash your feet after work. Full body immersion is rare, but spot cleaning is daily. You use a strigil, a curved tool to scrape off sweat and dirt. You step out of the tub, skin pruny and pink. You dry off with a rough linen towel. You put your clothes back on. They feel gritty against your clean skin, reminding you that cleanliness is temporary. The city is waiting to dirty you again. But for this moment, you feel human. You smell like soap instead of smoke. You feel light, You step out into the street, and the cool air hits your face. You are ready to face the mud again. Let's step out of the bathhouse and into the wild, unpredictable world of medieval animals. You might think animals belong in the countryside. Wrong. The medieval city is a zoo. Animals are everywhere. They are tools, food, garbage disposals, and occasionally co-workers. Pigs are the city's unofficial sanitation department. They roam the streets freely, snuffling through the muck, eating vegetable peelings, offal, and whatever else people throw out the window. They are semi-wild, bristly, and surprisingly aggressive. If you see a pig coming down a narrow alley, you move. A 300 knot. Pound hog does not respect right of way. They are branded so owners can claim them, but mostly they belong to the streets until slaughter time. Then there are the horses. They are the engines of the city. War horses, cart horses, pack horses. They are massive, muscular beasts that stomp, snort, and leave prodigious amounts of manure everywhere. The smell of horse dung is the base note of the city's perfume. Blacksmiths' hammers ring out as they shoe them. Grooms shout as they brush them. The city runs on horsepower, quite literally. Chickens are the urban pigeons of the day. They scratch in the dirt of courtyards, lay eggs in rafters, and wake everyone up at dawn. They are small, portable protein. Everyone keeps a few chickens. They are low maintenance and high reward. Dogs are everywhere, but they aren't all pets. There are hunting hounds, sleek, valuable, owned by nobles. There are guard dogs, big chained mastiffs that bark at shadows.
And then there are the curs, scrappy street dogs that live on scraps and wits.
They form packs. They fight. They are part of the urban ecosystem, cleaning up what the pigs miss. Cats are workers. They are tolerated, not pampered. Their job is simple: kill rats. A good mouser is worth its weight in gold. If a cat stops killing rats, it stops getting fed. They prowl the rafters of granaries and the dark corners of kitchens, silent assassins in fur coats. The idea of cat food in a tin would baffle a medieval person. The cat eats what it kills. And then there are the unwanted guests. Rats, mice, fleas, lice. They are the constant itching background noise of life. You don't exterminate them. You manage them. You shake out your bedding. You wear sachets of herbs to repel fleas. You pick lice off your children's heads by the fire. It is a never-ending war of attrition. Occasionally you see something exotic. A bear, chained and muzzled, being led by a performer to dance in the market square. A monkey sitting on a merchant's shoulder, picking at a piece of fruit. These are marvels, creatures from the edge of the map, brought here to entertain. You stare at the bear. It looks sad. It looks tired. You feel a strange kinship with it. Animals are not separate from human life. They live in the house. The cow might sleep in the byre attached to the kitchen, its body heat warming the room. The pig might sleep under the table. The line between human space and animal space is blurry. You walk past a stable. The smell is rich: hay, leather, manure. A horse whinnies softly. It's a comforting sound. In a world of stone and wood, animals are warm, breathing reminders of nature. They work hard, they suffer, they survive. Just like you. Let's leave the animals and step into the solemn, silent world of the medieval book. Or rather, the manuscript. Because in a world without printing presses, every book is a handmade miracle. You enter a scriptorium. It is quiet here, a sharp contrast to the shouting city outside. The air smells of oak gall, ink, parchment, and beeswax candles. Monks sit at slanted desks bent over sheets of vellum. Vellum is calfskin. To make a single Bible, you need the skins of maybe 200 calves. The skin is soaked in lime, scraped clean of hair and flesh, stretched on a frame until it is tight as a drum, and dried. Then it is sanded smooth. It is durable, smooth, and incredibly expensive. A book costs as much as a small farm. The monk holds a quill, a goose feather, cured and cut to a precise point. He dips it into an inkhorn. He writes, slowly. Each letter is formed with deliberate care. The script is Gothic, dense, angular, vertical. It looks like a picket fence. He doesn't just write words, he builds them. If he makes a mistake, there is no delete key. He has to scrape the ink off with a knife. If he is tired, he might write a note in the margin. The light is bad today, or this vellum is hairy, or I am cold. These marginalia are the voices of ghosts complaining about office conditions across the centuries. Then comes the illuminator. He adds the colour. He grinds lapis lazuli for blue, malachite for green, vermilion for red. He uses gold leaf hammered so thin it floats on a breath. He paints tiny, intricate scenes inside the capital letters. Saints, dragons, vines, knights fighting snails, a weirdly common motif. The gold catches the candlelight, making the page glow. That is why they are called illuminated. They are lit from within. Books are chained to the shelves in libraries, not because they are dangerous, but because they are valuable. Stealing a book is like stealing a car, but you probably can't read. Literacy is a specialized skill. You rely on visual storytelling. The stained glass windows in the church, the carvings on the cathedral doors, the plays performed on wagons in the market square. These are your books. They tell you the stories of the Bible, the lives of saints, the history of the world. You see a wealthy merchant walking down the street with a book of hours, a personal prayer book. It hangs from his belt in a leather pouch. He opens it. You catch a glimpse of blue and gold. It is a portable piece of art, a status symbol, a private connection to God. For the vast majority, knowledge is oral. It lives in memory. It is sung by minstrels, preached by friars, gossiped by neighbours. It is fluid, changing with every telling. But the book is fixed. It is authority. It is law. It is truth, trapped in ink. You watch the monk blow on the wet ink. He turns the page. The sound is crisp like a dry leaf. He dips the quill again. He is preserving the world, one letter at a time. Let's step out of the scriptorium and into the loud, competitive world of medieval entertainment. Because even in the Middle Ages, people need to have fun, or at least distract themselves from the fact that life is hard. You hear the sound of pipes and drums. A crowd is gathering in the town square. It's a troupe of travelling players. They set up a stage on the back of a wagon. They wear brightly coloured motley and masks made of painted leather. They are performing a mystery play. This isn't a whodunit, it's a Bible story. Noah's Ark, perhaps. The play is funny, bawdy, and irreverent. Noah's wife is portrayed as a shrew who refuses to get on the boat because she wants to finish her spinning. It's relatable. The devil appears, wearing a mask with horns and a tail, running into the audience with a pitchfork. Children scream and hide behind their mothers' skirts. It's interactive theatre at its finest. Then there are the tournaments. If a lord is hosting a joust, the whole countryside turns out. It is the medieval Super Bowl. Knights in shining armour, literally polished with sand and vinegar, charge at each other on massive horses. The ground shakes. The lances shatter with a sound like a thunderclap. Splinters fly, the crowd cheers for blood and bravery. It is violence stylized as sport. But you play simpler games. You play Nine Men's Morris, a strategy game scratched into a barrel top with stones as pieces. You play dice, rattling bones in a cup. You play football, mob football. There are no referees, no rules, and the ball is an inflated pig's bladder. The goal is to get the ball to the other end of the village by any means necessary. People get punched, trampled, and thrown into the river. It is essentially a localized riot. Music is everywhere. It isn't recorded. It's live. A shepherd plays a flute made of bone. A beggar plays a hurdy-gurdy, a crank-turned string instrument that sounds like a bagpipe with a cold. In the tavern, people sing. They sing ballads about Robin Hood, the outlaw who defies the sheriff. They sing drinking songs. They sing hymns. Music binds the community together. And then there is the gossip, the original social media, the bakehouse, the market. These are the nodes of the network. News travels fast. The miller is cheating. The blacksmith's daughter ran off with a juggler. Stories grow in the telling. A wolf becomes a werewolf. A strange light in the sky becomes a dragon. Entertainment is participatory. You don't just watch. You shout, you sing, you dance. You circle dance, holding hands, stepping in rhythm to a drum. It is primal and joyous. The sun sets, the players pack up their wagon, the crowd disperses, the laughter fades. But for a few hours, you forgot about the cold, the hunger, the work. You were transported. You walk home, humming a tune from the play. The city feels a little less oppressive. Joy is a fuel, and you have refilled your tank. Let's talk about money. Not the digital numbers hovering in your bank account today, but medieval money. Heavy, dirty, physical, and constantly at risk of being shaved, stolen, or debased. You stand at a market stall, eyeing a piece of cheese. The merchant names a price. You reach into your pouch. You don't pull out a crisp note or tap a card. You pull out a silver penny. It is tiny. It is thin. And it is incredibly misshapen. It isn't a perfect circle. It looks like someone hammered a piece of silver with a rock, which is essentially what happened. The edges are jagged. Why? Because of clipping. Unscrupulous people, maybe even you, take a pair of shears and snip a tiny sliver of silver off the edge of the coin before spending it. Save enough slivers, and you can melt them down to make a new coin. It is illegal. It is punishable by death or mutilation. Everyone does it. The merchant takes your penny. He doesn't just look at it. He weighs it. He puts it on a tiny set of scales held in his hand. If it's too light, he rejects it. This penny is bald, he says, meaning the face of the king has been worn away by too many thumbs. You argue. He sighs. You offer him a halfpenny instead, literally a penny cut in half with a chisel. Small change is a DIY project here. Money smells. It smells of metal, sweat, and grease. It leaves a grey stain on your fingers. It jingles in your pouch, a sound that is both comforting and dangerous. In a crowded street, that jingle is a dinner bell for cut purses. These thieves don't pick pockets. They use a small, sharp knife to slice the strings of your purse. catching it before it hits the ground. You walk with your hand over your belt, paranoid and protective. But what if you don't have coins? You barter. You trade a day's labour for a bag of flour. You trade a dozen eggs for a pair of shoe soles. The economy is fluid. Value is determined by need, not just a price tag. And then there is credit. You might think credit cards are modern. Wrong. The medieval credit card is a stick, a literal stick of wood, usually hazel or willow. It is called a tally stick. Here is how it works. You buy a cow on credit. The scribe takes a stick and carves notches into it representing the price. Then he splits the stick down the middle, lengthwise. You keep one half, the stock. The merchant keeps the other half, the counter stock. When you come back to pay, you put the two sticks together. If the notches line up perfectly, the debt is valid. It is forgery proof. You can't add a notch to your stick without it showing on his.
The exchequer, the royal treasury, is filled with thousands of these sticks. They are the hard drive of the medieval economy.
When the debt is paid, they burn the sticks. Fun fact, in 1834, the British government decided to burn centuries of old tally sticks in a furnace under the House of Lords. The fire got out of control and burned down the entire Parliament building. Medieval accounting literally destroyed the government. Usury, lending money at interest, is a sin. The church forbids Christians from charging interest. This creates a complex economic dance. Jewish communities who are not bound by this specific church law, though they have their own, often step into the role of moneylenders. They provide the capital that builds castles and cathedrals, yet they are often vilified for it. It is a precarious, dangerous role in a society that needs loans but hates debt. You put your clipped penny back in your pouch, you decide the cheese is too expensive, you walk away, feeling the weight of the few coins you have left bumping against your hip. Money in the medieval city is scarce. Most people live hand to mouth. But because it is scarce, it feels real. A gold florin or a noble is a stunning object, heavy, glowing, intricate. If you ever hold one, you stare at it for a long time before letting it go. It represents months of life condensed into cold metal. Let's leave the market and head towards the one place in the medieval city that offers something resembling peace. The cathedral. You see it from miles away. It dominates the skyline, a mountain of stone rising out of a sea of wooden shacks. It is impossibly huge. The spire pierces the clouds. The walls are covered in gargoyles, grotesque monsters carved in stone, leering down at the city. They are gutters spouting rainwater from their open mouths, but they are also guardians, scaring away evil spirits. You walk through the massive oak doors. The noise of the city vanishes instantly, replaced by a profound, echoing silence. The air inside is cool, smelling of beeswax, old incense, and damp stone. It is a sensory shock. Your eyes adjust to the dim light, and then you look up. The stained glass windows are blazing with colour. Ruby red, sapphire blue, emerald green. In a world of mud and brown wool, this is the most colour you will ever see in one place. It is overwhelming. The light filters through, painting the stone floor in pools of liquid colour. These windows are the Bible of the poor. You can't read the Latin scriptures, but you can read the glass. There is Noah. There is Mary. There is the Last Judgment, terrifying and beautiful. You walk down the nave. It is vast. You feel tiny. That is the point. The architecture is designed to make you feel small before God. The stone pillars rise like trees in a petrified forest, meeting in high vaulted arches that seem to defy gravity. You wonder how human hands built this. You wonder how many men died falling from those scaffolds. The cathedral isn't just for prayer, it is the community centre. People are walking around, talking quietly. A lawyer is meeting a client in a side chapel. A merchant is praying for a safe voyage for his ship. A beggar is sleeping near the altar, seeking sanctuary. If you are a criminal on the run and you touch the knocker of the church door or sit on the frith stool, peace chair, near the altar, the law cannot touch you for 40 days. It is a zone of divine protection. You kneel on the cold stone floor. There are no pews. You stand or kneel. The stone sucks the heat from your knees. A priest is chanting in Latin. You don't understand the words, but the rhythm is soothing. Dominus vobiscum, et cum spiritu tuo. It is a spell, an incantation that holds the world together. You look at a statue of a saint. It is painted in bright, gaudy colours, pink skin, gold robes, red blood. We imagine medieval statues as bare stone, but they were originally riotous with colour. The saint looks back at you with wooden, compassionate eyes. You light a thin tallow candle. The flame flickers. You whisper a prayer. For health, for food, for a winter that isn't too harsh. You feel a sense of connection, not just to God, but to the generations who have knelt here before you. The stone floor is worn smooth by millions of knees. You are part of a long line of people seeking comfort in the dark. You stand up. Your knees crack. You walk back toward the doors. As you step out, the noise of the city hits you again. A wall of sound. But you carry a little bit of the silence with you. A small, quiet space inside your chest. You look back at the gargoyles. One of them looks like it is laughing. You smile just a little and head back into the fray. Let's take a walk to the edge of the city, to a place most people avoid but everyone eventually needs. The plague pits. Or more accurately, the cemeteries that are slowly turning into them. Death in the medieval city is not hidden. It is a neighbour. The average life expectancy is complicated. If you survive childhood, which is a 50/50th coin toss, you might live to be 60, but getting there is a gauntlet. The cemeteries are overcrowded. Space inside the city walls is precious, so the dead are packed tight. You see the sexton digging a new grave. He digs up old bones to make room for the new ones. He tosses a skull onto a pile like it's a stone. It isn't disrespect, it's geometry. There simply isn't enough ground. The bones are moved to a charnel house, an open crypt where skulls and femurs are stacked in neat artistic walls. As you are, I once was. As I am, you will be, the inscription reads. It is the city's motto, but when an epidemic hits, the sweating sickness, the flux, the plague, geometry fails. The graveyards overflow. Trenches are dug in fields outside the walls. Bodies are wrapped in shrouds. Coffins are for the rich, and stacked like cordwood, lime is thrown on top to speed decomposition and stifle the smell. You walk past a pest house, a quarantine hut built on the outskirts. A red cross is painted on the door. Lord have mercy upon us is scrawled in chalk. You hear coughing from inside. You hold your breath as you pass. You clutch the pomander, a hollow metal ball filled with spices that hangs from your belt, or you just hold a rag soaked in vinegar to your nose. You believe the miasma, the bad smell, carries the disease. You are wrong about the mechanism, it's the fleas, but right about the danger. Yet, despite the omnipresence of death, there is a lack of terror. There is an acceptance. Death is the gateway to something better, or at least something different. People prepare for the good death. This means dying in your bed, surrounded by family, having confessed your sins and received the last rites. A sudden death, a stroke, a murder, an accident is feared because you don't have time to clear your spiritual ledger. Wills are written early, you leave your best bed to your wife, your tools to your son, a few coins to the church to pray for your soul. You want to be remembered. You pay for a chantry priest to sing masses for you every day for a year, or forever if you can afford it. You see a funeral procession winding through the streets. Professional mourners dressed in black hoods wail loudly. They are paid to cry. The more noise, the more important the deceased. The hearse is draped in a black pall embroidered with gold crosses. It is sombre, dramatic, and strangely beautiful. You realize that the city is built on layers of the dead. The street level rises every century as debris and bones accumulate. You are walking on history. You are walking on your ancestors. You turn away from the graveyard. You are alive. Your heart is beating. Your breath clouds in the cold air. You feel a sudden, fierce desire to eat something, to drink something, to touch someone warm. The proximity of death makes life burn brighter. You head back toward the tavern. You want to hear noise. You want to see light. You want to forget the bones for a little while longer. Let's step into the tavern. You duck your head under the low lintel and push open the heavy door. The warmth hits you first, a wall of heat from the central hearth and the packed bodies. Then the smell, roasted meat, spilled ale, wood smoke, and damp wool. It is loud, incredibly loud. The tavern is the medieval living room. Since your actual living room is cold and crowded with relatives, you come here. You find a spot on a bench. The wood is polished smooth by thousands of backsides. You signal the alewife. She is a formidable woman with sleeves rolled up to her elbows, carrying a pitcher in each hand. She slams a leather tankard down in front of you. "Penny," she says. "You pay. You drink." The ale is thick, slightly sweet, and warm. It isn't highly alcoholic, but it's enough to take the edge off the day. Look around. In the corner, two men are playing tables, a precursor to backgammon. They are slamming the pieces down with unnecessary force. Another group is playing dice. Hazard is the game. It's complex, fast, and people lose their shirts playing it. Literally. You see a man walk out barefoot because he bet his shoes and lost. A minstrel is tuning a lute by the fire. He starts to sing. It's a bawdy song about a miller and a milkmaid. The crowd joins in on the chorus, banging their mugs on the tables. The rhythm is primal. It shakes the dust from the rafters. But the tavern isn't just for fun. It's for business. You see a merchant finalizing a deal for a shipment of wool. They spit on their palms and shake hands. The deal is binding. Witnesses are everywhere. You see a man hiring labourers for the harvest. You see a group of pilgrims sharing tips on the road ahead. "Avoid the woods near Nottingham," one says. "The sheriff is hanging travellers for fun." Arguments break out. Alcohol and exhaustion are a volatile mix. A man stands up, knocking over his stool. "You cheat!" he shouts. A knife is drawn. The room goes quiet. The alewife steps in, wielding a heavy wooden ladle like a mace. "Take it outside," she commands. They do. You hear a scuffle, a thud, and then silence. They'll be back in 10 minutes, buying each other drinks. The tavern is an equalizer. Here, a master mason drinks next to a ditch digger. A wealthy widow drinks next to a scribe. For a few hours, the rigid hierarchy of the city softens. You are just people seeking warmth and company. You finish your ale. You feel drowsy. The fire is dying down to embers. The minstrel is packing up his lute. The curfew bell will ring soon. You stand up, your legs heavy. You nod to the alewife. You push back out into the cold night air. The transition is jarring, but you feel better. You feel connected. You walk home through the dark streets, guided by the sliver of moon. You are just one of thousands, a shadow moving through shadows. But for a moment back there, in the firelight, you were part of something bright. Let's talk about a subject that dominates the medieval mind but is invisible to the eye. Magic. Not the fireball-throwing wizard kind, but the everyday, practical magic that people use to make sense of a chaotic world. You see a woman walking down the street muttering to herself. Is she crazy? No. She is reciting a charm. She lost her keys, and she is asking Saint Anthony to find them. Or maybe she is warding off the evil eye because a neighbour looked at her cow the wrong way. Magic is the technology of the desperate. If your child is sick and the doctor's leeches didn't work, you go to the cunning man. He gives you a piece of parchment with the word abracadabraca written in a triangle. You tie it around the child's neck. Does it work? Who knows? But it feels like doing something. Farmers bury bread in the corners of their fields to ensure a good harvest. Sailors buy wind knots from witches. Untie a knot, get a breeze. Blacksmiths quench their blades in water of dragons, which is probably just vinegar with rust in it. The church hates this mostly. They call it superstition. But the line between religion and magic is blurry. Is touching a relic of a saint to heal a wound religion or magic? Is ringing church bells to drive away thunderstorms theology or meteorology? The common person doesn't care about the distinction. They just want the storm to stop. Astrology is huge. It isn't fringe, it's science. Kings have royal astrologers. Doctors consult star charts before doing surgery. The moon is in Aries, so do not operate on the head. If you were born under Saturn, you are melancholic. If you are born under Mars, you are aggressive. It explains personality, fate, and why you are having a bad week. And then there are the monsters. You believe in them. You have never seen a dragon, but you know they exist. Travellers talk about dog-headed men in the east, sea serpents in the north, and basilisks in the cellar. The world is full of things that want to eat you. The woods are haunted. The crossroads are dangerous. You carry a piece of iron in your pocket to ward off fairies. Fairies aren't cute Tinkerbells. They are terrifying child-stealing tricksters. You don't say their name. You call them the good neighbours, so they don't get offended. This magical thinking acts as a buffer. It explains the unexplainable. Why did the milk go sour? A witch. Why did the horse go lame? An elf shot it. It gives a face to misfortune. It makes the random cruelty of the world feel like it has a cause, and therefore a solution. You walk past a house with a horseshoe nailed above the door. Iron protects. You touch the wood of a doorframe for luck. You cross yourself when a black cat crosses your path. You are weaving a net of small rituals to catch safety. It sounds irrational, but in a world where a fever can kill you in 2 days, where a storm can destroy your livelihood, where the night is absolute, a little magic feels like a shield. You look up at the stars. They are bright, cold, and watching. You wonder what they have planned for you. You hope it's good, or as quiet as it ever gets. The curfew bell has stopped ringing, which means legally no one should be on the streets. But you are peeking through a crack in your shutter, looking out into the void. Let's talk about the medieval night. In the modern world, night is just day with the lights turned off. You have street lamps, headlights, neon signs. In the medieval city, night is a physical weight. It is an ocean of black ink that swallows everything. The moon is your only friend. If it's cloudy, you literally cannot see your hand in front of your face. This darkness is terrifying. It is where the rules of civilization break down. This is why the city has the night watch. You see a bobbing light down the street. It's a lantern carried by a watchman. He isn't a professional police officer. He is probably your neighbour, the baker, doing his mandatory unpaid shift. He is holding a billhook, a pole with a blade on the end, and he looks cold, bored, and slightly nervous. His job is to walk the streets, check that doors are locked, and arrest night walkers. A night walker isn't a zombie. It's anyone out after curfew without a good reason. If you are caught, you spend the night in the toon, a small, round prison cell, the origin of the word town. The watchman calls out, 10 o'clock and a clear night. It is a reassuring sound. It tells you that someone is awake. Someone is guarding the herd, but the watch is notoriously ineffective. They are often old men or people too poor to bribe their way out of the duty. If they see a group of armed ruffians, they are likely to hide in the shadows and let them pass. They are not heroes. They are tired citizens who want to go back to bed. You pull away from the window. The cold is seeping through the wood. You turn back to the room. It is time for the final ritual of the day, securing the house. You check the door. It has a heavy iron bolt and a wooden bar. You slide them into place. Thunk. It is a satisfying sound. You cover the fire with an ash lid or a curfew, a metal cover, to keep the embers alive but prevent sparks. Fire is still the enemy even in sleep. Now, the bed. It is freezing in the room, so you use a bed warmer, a brass pan filled with hot coals from the fire attached to a long wooden handle. You slide it between the sheets, moving it around to banish the damp chill. The smell of singed wool rises up. It is the smell of comfort. You strip off your outer clothes. Most people sleep naked or in a simple linen shift, but you keep your head covered. The nightcap is essential. Medical theory says that you lose heat through your head and that cold air can enter your ears and cause illness while you sleep. So you pull a tight linen cap over your ears and tie it under your chin. You look ridiculous, but you feel safe. You climb into the bed. The straw mattress has a valley in the centre where everyone rolls together. It is a nest. You huddle for warmth. But sleep isn't continuous. Remember the first sleep and second sleep? You might wake up around 2 a.m. The house is silent. You lie there in the dark, listening. You hear the timber frame of the house settling, groaning like a ship at sea. You hear the wind in the chimney. This wakeful period is called the watch. It is a magical liminal time. It is when you do your best thinking. You worry about the harvest. You pray for your children. You listen to the breathing of the person next to you. It is the only time the city stops making demands on you. And then, heavy with fatigue, you drift back off. The darkness holds you. The city walls hold you for a few hours. The struggle is suspended. Let's take a moment before we sleep to think about what you didn't see today. The invisible network that holds this chaotic city together. The guilds. You saw the guild hall, but you didn't see the politics. The medieval city is run by a cartel of craftsmen. The tanners, the weavers, the masons, the butchers. They control everything. Prices, wages, quality. Who gets to work? Who gets to starve? To become a master, you start as an apprentice. A child, usually around 12. You are bound to a master for 7 years. You live in his house, eat his food, and do his grunt work. You are not paid. You are paid in knowledge and leftovers. If you run away, you can be hunted down and dragged back. It is indentured servitude with a graduation ceremony. After 7 years, you become a journeyman. You get paid a daily wage. Journée means day. You can travel, you can work for different masters, but you are not free. You cannot open your own shop until you produce a masterpiece, a work of such high quality that the guild masters vote to let you in. The masterpiece is expensive. It takes time. Many journeymen never make it. They stay wage labourers forever, the eternal middle management of the medieval world. The guilds are also the city's social safety net. If a master dies, the guild takes care of his widow. If he gets sick, they pay for his care. They pay for his funeral. They march in procession, carrying candles, wearing their guild livery. It is a tribe, a family you buy into, but they are also ruthless. They fix prices, they stifle innovation. That's not how we do it, is the guild motto. If you invent a machine that weaves cloth twice as fast, the Weavers Guild won't give you a medal. They will break your machine and possibly your legs because you are threatening their jobs. Progress is the enemy of stability. Women work too, but their relationship with guilds is complicated. A widow can often take over her husband's workshop. There are she-merchants and alewives and silkwomen, but they are rarely allowed to hold office. They are the silent partners in the economic engine. You think about the apprentice you saw earlier, hauling charcoal. He is at the bottom of a ladder that goes up to the sky. He dreams of being a master, wearing velvet, walking in the centre of the street. It is a narrow path, but it is there. The guild system is rigid, unfair, and controlling, but it creates order. In a world of chaos, knowing your place and knowing that your place is protected is a comfort. You hear a bell toll in the distance, probably a monastery calling monks to prayer. The city has a soul, and it is made of rules, stone, and brotherhood. You close your eyes. The straw prickles your cheek. You are tired, bone-deep tired. But you are safe inside the system. So here you are, lying in the dark, listening to the city breathe. You have walked its muddy streets, smelled its pungent air, tasted its gritty bread, and dodged its buckets of filth. You have seen the grandeur of the cathedral and the horror of the plague pit. You have felt the scratch of wool and the warmth of the tavern fire. And now, the final question. Why would you stay? Why endure the cold, the hunger, the constant threat of violence? Because the alternative is worse. The countryside is a place of silence and servitude. There, you belong to the land. Here, you belong to yourself. The city air makes you free. And because there is life here, intense, vibrant, unstoppable life. The city is a place where a peasant's son can become a bishop, where a merchant's daughter can marry a knight. It is a place of transformation. You think about the people you saw today, the butcher, the baker, the priest, the thief. They are all struggling, all striving. They are building a world out of wood and stone and sheer willpower. You realize that you are not just a survivor. You are a witness. You are seeing the birth of the modern world. The guilds will become corporations. The town councils will become parliaments. The universities will become centres of science. The chaotic, smelly, dangerous medieval city is the crucible where the future is being forged. But for now, it is just home. You pull the blanket tighter. The heat from your family warms you. The dog at the foot of the bed sighs. The shutters rattle one last time, then go still. The city sleeps, or at least it rests its eyes, because tomorrow the bells will ring again. The carts will rumble, the markets will open, and you will get up and do it all over again. You are tired, so tired your eyelids are heavy. The sounds of the street fade into a dull murmur. Let go of the day. Let go of the worry. Let go of the noise. You are safe. You are warm. You are here. The fire in the hearth has finally turned to ash. The last orange glow fades into grey. The room is cooling, but the body heat of the household keeps the worst of the chill at bay. The candle was blown out hours ago. The darkness is now complete, heavy, and total. You listen one last time. The city outside has finally stopped moving. The carts are parked, the horses are stabled, the shouts of the market have dissolved into the air. Even the church bells are silent, waiting for matins. The great grinding machine of the medieval world has paused. And as the silence stretches out, the walls of the timber-framed house begin to fade. The smell of wood smoke and damp wool drifts away. The scratchy straw mattress beneath you softens, dissolving into something else. You are no longer in the tenement. You are no longer in 1348. The mud, the noise, the struggle, it all recedes, slipping back into the pages of history where it belongs. You are back in your own bed. The sheets are clean, the air is clear, the temperature is perfect. There are no drafts, no fleas, no buckets in the corner. You are safe in the modern world, protected by centuries of progress that you didn't have to fight for. Feel the weight of your body sinking into the mattress. Your legs, tired from walking those cobblestones, are heavy and relaxed. Your hands, unclenched from holding onto your money pouch, are open and still. The tension of survival has left your shoulders. You don't have to wake up at dawn. You don't have to carry water. You don't have to fear the winter. You just have to sleep. The past is a fascinating place to visit, but it is a hard place to live. You have done your time. You have survived the city. Now you get to rest. Let the darkness wrap around you, not as a threat, but as a blanket. Let the quiet fill your mind. The story is over. The work is done. Sleep well. The past isn't going anywhere. It will be there if you ever want to visit again. But for now, just drift. Good night.